Back in the early 60s, Stan Lee was tired of working for Marvel, which at the time was called Timely Comics. So he decided to do a comic book the way he wanted to do it, even if he was gonna get fired. With that, Stan Lee created the Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four were not just the first superhero family, but would become the bedrock for Stan Lee's career for becoming a comic book legend. Well, because another Fantastic Four movie is out now, it's time to review the Fantastic Four movies. The first one ever made was a low-budget film made back in the 90s. The reason why it was made but never released in theaters was because the studio was going to lose the film rights if they didn't make a Fantastic Four movie anytime soon. So this movie is about a team of characters going to outer space to study cosmic rays. However, they crash land on Earth and discover that they have superpowers. Dr. Reed Richards, played by Alex Hyde White, can stretch, Susan Storm, played by Rebecca Stabe, can turn invisible, Johnny Storm, played by Jay Underwood, can become flammable, and Ben Grimm, played by Michael Bailey Smith, becomes the Thing. They also have to deal with an evil individual known as Dr. Doom, played by Joseph Kolb. This Fantastic Four movie is really bad. I know that it was made cheaply and it was never supposed to see the light of day, but that doesn't excuse it for being a bad movie. Because of its low budget, I feel like I'm watching a TV movie. One of the worst things about it, technical wise, is its directing. Sometimes there are scenes where the camera spins and it's just one of the dumbest things I've seen in any movie. Oh, and get this. Guess who decided they would be called the Fantastic Four?
Look at you. The Fantastic Four.
Yes, the mom of Johnny and Susan. Then there's this scene when Dr. Doom tries to tell the team there's a new weapon, but it's obviously stock footage of a nuclear explosion. Speaking of, Dr. Doom is a lame villain that can't even take out one of the members of the Fantastic Four by himself. The only positive thing I can say about this movie is the fact that it's probably the most accurate interpretation of the origin story of the Fantastic Four compared to the other movies. I give Fantastic Four from 1994 1.5 stars out of 4. By the time the studio was finally ready to make a Fantastic Four movie, we got it in 2005. We had Ian Gruffit, I'm not so sure if I'm saying that right, as Mr. Fantastic, Jessica Alba as the Invisible Girl,
What about your leader?
Michael Chiklis as the Thing, and Chris Evans as Captain America. I mean, the Human Torch.
I understood that reference.
So, Dr. Richards goes into outer space with a team of individuals to study the cosmic event in space, but they get hit by the cosmic storm before they're ready to put their shields up. This, of course, leads them to get superpowers, and what do they do with them? Not much. Yeah, this is probably the only superhero movie I can think of in which they do not do anything with their superpowers. Well, at least not much, or not much action happens. Another individual that was hit by the cosmic storm was Victor Von Doom, played this time by Julian McMahon, also gets powers, wants to kill the Fantastic Four, and becomes Dr. Doom. But before this happens, we have to endure shenanigans with the Human Torch and the Thing. One thing, no pun intended, I never got why the Thing's wife decides she doesn't want to be married to him anymore just because he looks like a freak. I mean, he wasn't much of a looker even when he was normal. But he is able to rebound with a new love interest named Alicia, played this time by Kerry Washington. Gee, I can see the striking resemblance. Speaking of relationships, Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Girl bond. In fact, there's this deleted scene in which he morphs his face to look like Wolverine. I mean, he doesn't look much like Wolverine. He looks more like Chris Hemsworth if you ask me. But the movie finally picks up when Dr. Doom battles the Fantastic Four. Which, by the way, why does Dr. Doom have lightning powers? He never had that in the comics and his abilities were all science and magic. Not to nitpick, but the CGI in this movie looks like the test footage for the next Pixar movie. So, Fantastic Four is not bad, but a forgettable superhero movie. I give the 2005 version of Fantastic Four 2 stars out of 4. A few years later, it got a sequel called Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman are going to get married around the same time in which strange activities start happening around the world. They find out that the cause of these is an alien being known as the Silver Surfer, voiced by Lawrence Fishburne. In addition, Dr. Doom returns to take the power of the Silver Surfer for his own. I do prefer this one because there's more action and more going on in general. The CGI is a little better, but not dramatically. I don't know what was more unsubtle, the product placement or Jessica Alba's obvious blue contacts. I mean, it just makes her look kinda weird, especially with her extremely blonde hair and tan, which was a thing at the time, and I never considered women who tan a lot to be very attractive. For a movie that's rated PG, I was surprised that they were able to get away with a sexual joke.
How do you guys,
That's none of your business.
Okay, all right, I'm just concerned. I'd hate to wake up one morning and find out she was killed in a rock slide.
I'll show you a rock slide.
But those are minor complaints. These are my main ones. There's a scene when the Thing climbs up to a crane and hits Dr. Doom with it. Do I even have to explain why that sounds stupid? I did like the Silver Surfer, but why didn't he say "to me, my board"? That was pretty much his catchphrase in the comics and the cartoon.
To me, my board!
This movie also doesn't do justice to Galactus. I mean, why does he look like a space cloud? Again, I can see the striking resemblance. As much as I feel this movie is a mixed bag and doesn't do justice to the source material, I do prefer this one to its predecessor. I give Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer 2 stars out of 4. There was going to be a sequel and even a Silver Surfer movie, but because the movie underperformed at the box office, they were cancelled. So now we have another reboot of the Fantastic Four, but I really do wish they would just give the film rights back to Marvel. Reed Richards, played this time by Miles Teller, helps build a teleporter that can go to different dimensions. He goes with several other people to another dimension, but all of them get affected and get superpowers. Yeah, you probably saw that one coming. When the cast was announced, this movie was under extreme controversy. The main fact was because the Fantastic Four was gonna look like they were still in college. But the most controversial was Michael B. Jordan as the Human Torch. It was understandable. Not just the casting, but ever since this movie came out, everyone is panning this movie. The main reason why I saw this movie was the fact that the guy who directed this movie was the guy who directed Chronicle. At least he was far more qualified than the guy who directed Barbershop. I saw it recently, and it's definitely not as bad as everyone is making it out to be. I mean, come on! It's not as bad as Batman Robin. I bet that if this movie was part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, then people would be a lot more lenient. I was open to the fact they were basing it more off the Ultimate Fantastic Four comic book series. Dr. Doom was actually really powerful, and he actually killed people in a very violent way. Back to the team, the one thing that was more invisible than the Invisible Woman was her acting. I'm not kidding. Half of her facial expressions are very emotionless. The one character to really talk about is the Thing. I know they went the CGI route, but he looked really cool. Well, minus the fact that he's pretty much naked. I mean, seriously, no pants? There, that's better. With the story, it's not very paced well. It had a very lengthy beginning, but a very rushed and short third act. Although I really disagree with the critics, it's my least favorite movie that I've seen in theaters so far this year. I give the 2015 version of Fantastic Four 2.5 stars out of 4.
Hey, you. Come here. Let me ask you something.